Today, I want to answer a question that I'm sure has been burning at people everywhere, and that's whether a shortage of food pellets ruined our lives. I know that doesn't make sense, so let me explain. A long time ago, there's a fellow by the name of Skinner, and he was doing some science, and he was doing some science on rats, as scientists tend to do. And he was trying to figure out if he could get rats to repeat behavior. And what he did was he put like a little lever in a box, and every time the lever got pushed, a little food pellet would come out and they'd eat it. So the first time you put the rat in the box, they kind of just walk around. They don't really know what to do. They're checking things out. And then accidentally they hit the lever and a food pellet comes out. Well, they're pretty smart, and they start to predict that if they press the lever, they get a food pellet. And their brains work in a very similar fashion to us. They're just fancy prediction machines. We got a little more horsepower in our heads, but it works pretty much the same way. And so if you kind of realize that if you hit this lever, you get a food pellet, you're going to keep doing it, especially if you're a rat and you're looking for food. And one day, he realized obviously that this is what will happen. Like, that is what happens when you do it. You can get behavior out of the rat to do that thing. Well, one day, he was running short on food pellets, and he kind of knew that, the best food pellets are artisanal. They're homemade. He was making all his own food pellets, and he wanted to get some science done that day, and he was running short, and he didn't necessarily want to make new food pellets because, who wants to do that? So he decided to test out whether if he didn't feed them every time, if they would still hit the lever. So he wanted to stretch out his food supply, so he went every 10, let's say. Lo and behold, the rats keep hitting the lever, even if they don't get a reward every single time. He thought this was interesting, and it's a little interesting. He still got the same behavior, and he had to give out less reward. And so he tried a bunch of different, like every 3, every 5, every 10, every 20, and recorded his results, trying to see how well it worked. Well, then he decided, what if we tried it random, and what he called like a variable reinforcement schedule? What if we do that instead? And guess what? Man, did those rats hit that lever. Turns out random or variable schedules for reinforcement of behavior work really well, like really well. Because again, the brain's predicting, it knows eventually it will go, and it's only a matter of hitting that lever to see if you get a reward. Well, here's the thing. Like I said, our brains work very similarly to rats in that we're making predictions. We're constantly making predictions. You throw me a ball, my experiences and how I'm processing that is a little delayed. So I got to predict where my hand needs to be to catch that ball. And when it comes to other kinds of things, we're making predictions too. And turns out, who finds this scientific research and starts to use it? Well, casinos start to figure it out. And they start to realize, if you pull on this lever, you don't get a reward every time, but you're going to get a reward eventually. It's random. It's a variable reinforcement schedule. Guess what? It's super addictive. Who else got their hands on this research? Social media companies. What did they do with it? They gave it to the algorithm, and they wrote an algorithm around that to keep people engaged in the platform. And it's built to, you don't see not everything you swipe is good or feels rewarding or hits you with dopamine, but randomly it does. So what do? We keep pulling that lever, just keep pressing the lever, keep scrolling. So same deal. It's very addictive. And the thing about human beings and rewards is when it comes to things that we're afraid of, we seek out more information, and that counts as a reward. And that's how you get doom scrolling. You're afraid of something, and since we don't have a lot of information, we seek it out to improve our prediction. But just consuming this kind of fear-mongering information online isn't necessarily giving you accurate prediction. It's some information, but it's not necessarily the truth. And that's how you get doom scrolling, even though it's not your tradition, it's not a food pellet, but to your brain, it still kind of feels like one. And that's kind of the danger of these platforms. We're fighting our own biology. So what can you do? It can feel hopeless, right? Fighting my own biology. I'm just a rat brain in a maze, hitting levers, and I can't stop it. Well, no, if you know that your brain is a prediction machine, you can do something about it. That's what differs between a rat and ourselves. A rat doesn't know that its brain's a prediction machine, and it doesn't have any basis of science around how this works and how behaviors and all that. We do. And we can actually fine-tune our prediction machine, especially when we want to make a change. Like, human beings are super adaptable. No slight to rats, but that's why, because we are capable of change. And so you want to load your brain up with different beliefs, and these beliefs affect how you process reality and how you make predictions. So I call a set of beliefs a mindset. You probably see this advice all over, like, mindset's everything. Well, it's true, because if you truly believe that change is possible, what's called a growth mindset, that you aren't necessarily hopelessly addicted, you're not an addict when it comes to scrolling, but maybe you're susceptible to scrolling behavior and there's a way out and that you can change, that's a good belief to have, because it changes how your brain makes predictions. And if you believe that change is possible, and you also believe that the best way to make change is by making small experiments and testing, that also changes your predictions. Because again, we're still kind of dumb. We look at something we want to change in our life, and let's just keep with scrolling and say, I want to change, I want to stop scrolling. We're kind of stupid. And our prediction is as simple as, I want to stop, so I predict if I stop, I'll change my behavior. Well, the truth is that that's not how it works. We're all unique. We have different lived experiences. We have different sets of beliefs. We have different information, etc. And what works for someone isn't going to work for someone else. And so even if we read something online that's a suggestion of how you can make a change, and we try it and it doesn't work, doesn't mean you can't change. It means that specific change didn't work. So that's why I encourage people to make small experiments, test out. Let's see what happens if I try not to use it at night. Let's see what happens if I try not to use it in the bathroom. I'm currently trying to do that, like not ever bring it in the bathroom. Just experiment with these things and see how it goes. Because, again, we need to give our brain some real information, some real experiences about what works for us and what we need uniquely to us to make that change. And that's called an experimental mindset. So believing that change is possible and believing that the best way to do it is by just making experiments, committing to them and seeing what happens. And then you just keep repeating that until you figure out what works for you. And those are critical. And the last set of beliefs is just believing that, when you're scrolling on a phone, there's a system at play that's trying to get behavior out of you, but you have control over your actions and the commitments that you make. This is called a commitment mindset, thinking in the terms of the commitments that are at play from the system that you're in to your system as a human being, and figuring out what are the commitments you need to make, whether it's an experiment or putting in place these rules. And so using the experimental mindset to find out the rules that will be effective for you, and then making those commitments to yourself, that gives you the framework to create change, where it's not about quitting cold turkey. It's about, what are the rules that I put in place for myself that put a lattice around the behavior that I want. It's not about shutting it out. It's about using these platforms intentionally to serve you, because there's a lot of good out there. You can find so much good information on YouTube, but you can also spend your whole life scrolling it. And so you need to understand what the system wants you to stay. That's the commitment it wants from you. Keep scrolling. And so that's, those three mindsets combined are really key to prime your prediction machine to get the change you desire for these habits that you might have developed over time. Yeah, that was long, rambly, but just a different perspective on our brains as a prediction machine. And we can either, feel like that's a hindrance, or we can recognize that there's real power that we can affect our behavior. But it requires a change in perspective, a different set of beliefs, different mindsets. So that's all I have for today. If this resonated with you, would appreciate it if you subscribe. I'm trying to post 3 times a week. If you know of anyone in your life that is dealing with scrolling on their phone that could use this, tell them I'm out here. I'm passionate and ready to help. That's all I have for today. Appreciate you. Bye.